Good evening everyone and welcome to Tube4change. This is our first content video. Thank you very much to everyone who's subscribed so far and is supporting the channel. Today we thought we'd start off, ease ourselves in gently with a straightforward topic on how do I turn my child into a neurosurgeon. Of course, this channel will be run by neurosurgeons from Cambridge, some affiliated with the university, some directly with the hospital. And if you haven't heard of the University of Cambridge, well, you should have. It's one of the most influential universities in the country, so much so that Stormy has his own scholarship programme. Now, for those of you who don't already know, the idea of this channel is that it becomes essentially independent, generates its own income through subscriptions and viewers. And as much of that income as possible starts to get redirected back to charities both throughout the UK and in Europe. And the concept of essentially charitable funding and the funding of the NHS is certainly nothing new. It's certainly something that deeply affects the whole of this country, and it's something that we really need to change. Instead of taking money from the pockets of the general working population, we need to try and think of new and novel ways that we can generate income without affecting the public. That way, by hitting subscribe, watching the channels, we can generate income through adverts. And if the question is to you, then why should I be involved? Why should I subscribe? Well, my answer is quite simple. If you're currently sitting in an A&E waiting room for 5 or 6 hours, why don't you subscribe? If you're sitting at home waiting on that knee or hip operation, instead of moaning about it, why don't you subscribe? And if you're just about to take out the recycling, pause for a moment. Sit down, get your phone, subscribe to the channel, and make sure the NHS is still viable for that greener planet you're trying to create. And we really hope this channel will inspire others to become involved. We hope we can feed off our subscribers and continue to grow in different channels. Our vision really is, in 2-3 years' time, there will be a Tube4change in London, in Birmingham, in Newcastle, Tube4change Hull, Luton, Leicester, and all of these different branches can really grow and raise money for the hospital that they, or the charities local to them, that they care for. And I mean, really, they can offer is this: if you're a group of nurses, doctors, allied healthcare professionals from any other region in the UK and you want to get involved, you think this is a good idea and you want to set up your own channel, get in touch with us at tube4change@gmail.com and we'll be more than happy to try and pool our resources and see if we can grow together across the UK. And these issues are really nothing new. They're so deeply ingrained within British society that we've heard it repeatedly and routinely over and over again. More funding for the NHS. Lipa stood on the stage at the Brit Awards last year in 2021 and essentially asked for better wages for nurses in the NHS. So I mean, do if you are watching this, you know, which I'm sure you're not, but if you are, feel free to circulate this in your channel. You know, as much awareness we can raise from this, the better. And the quicker we do that, the quicker we can essentially put change into place. Now, the whole thing that really inspired us to get this started is really within Cambridge. One of the visions that we have at the minute within the Department of Neurosurgery is to create an intraoperative MRI. For those who do not know what that is, essentially it is an MRI machine within an operating theatre, which means that when you are resecting difficult brain tumours in adults, but more obviously and more prominently in children, you can essentially do some of the operation, immediately take them through the MRI machine, see how much is left, and make a decision on what your next stage is surgically. These types of things, which are not readily funded or are difficult to fund within the NHS, are very, very, very difficult to put in place with the correct infrastructure. That's why, unfortunately, in our society, that when something like this is required, it has to be privately funded. So that's really the whole inspiration, that we would like to try and, in any way we can, develop funds to contribute to that, so we can bring a better service to people with brain tumours. So here it is, the question that we have been waiting for, and that is essentially, how do I turn my child into a brain surgeon? Well, the first question that you've got to ask yourself is, why on earth would you want to do that? What would motivate you to be a brain surgeon? Well, is it fame or fortune? Well, I don't mean to burst your bubble, but there isn't actually much there involved at all. And if you want to be, you know, famous or have a large fortune, I would suggest that you probably aim more towards being a Premier League footballer. Anyone who's watched the news recently would need to look no further than young Phil Fodden of Manchester City, who is reportedly earning £225,000 a week. Not bad if you can get it, and certainly I am not here to criticise Phil. But if you compare that to the salary of a consultant neurosurgeon in the UK, which is roughly £82,000 a year, you can see where the discrepancies lie. You might turn around and say to me, yeah, but of course, that's ridiculous. I mean, how many people become Premier League footballers? And yeah, you do have a point, but if I point out to you that there are 450 consultant neurosurgeons in the United Kingdom today, versus 20 teams in the Premier League, all of which have 25-man squads, you can quickly see that there are 50 more people that play Premier League football than there are neurosurgeons. So from the outset, you have a better chance of being a Premier League footballer than a neurosurgeon. And not that this is a discussion that I want to enter into today, because obviously, you know, there is a complete disproportionate gap between male and female footballers. And again, it's not something that we can address in their opening video. But even if you look at women's professional football, Leah Williamson, who's the captain of England, earns something in the region of £200,000 a year reportedly, which again is about 2.5 times the salary of a consultant neurosurgeon. So quite quickly you can see that, you know, although there is this kind of long-standing thought that consultant neurosurgeon or consultants in the NHS are paid extortionate amounts, that's clearly not the case. There is no doubt that £82,000 is very much a comfortable salary, but what we will kind of touch on a bit later is essentially what it actually takes to get there. Now that we've discounted fame and fortune, I suppose the question is, you know, what would inspire someone to be a brain surgeon? I mean, to start off with, it takes years to train, around 20 years in Cambridge. It's completely packed with pressure on a daily basis. It's very intense, and essentially the consequences of something going wrong can often be catastrophic, all for what we have described as a kind of moderate salary or modest salary in the UK. Well, I mean, I suppose the bottom line is that is actually the answer. I mean, some people are driven by the difficulty of the task in hand, the intensity which they undergo essentially on a kind of daily or weekly basis, and a lot of people are actually driven by what is at stake. You are essentially driven by this kind of continual feeling that you are there to make the absolute very best version of yourself. And when someone comes through the door, whether it's an individual, whether it's a parent of a child who needs you when their relative or they are dying, and they need the very best version of you, that you feel that all this training and essentially practice has put you in the best position to help them at their ultimate time of need. And to be frank, of course, you know, I would love 230 grand a week, but really weighing it up after the first time you save someone's life, you would never really give that feeling or the privilege of being able to do that up for any amount of money. When you kind of sit back and you reflect at some of the things you've done over the course of even my short career, when you have been alone, sometimes in the middle of the night with a very small but invaluable surgical team, and someone comes through in their ultimate time of need, and you have been privileged enough to be in that position to kind of save their life, there isn't any amount of money in the world that you would swap that for.